Most people date Shiprocket to 2017. The truth is, it was born in 2011, and the road there runs through two companies most of us have never heard of. First, a Shopify for India called KartRocket with a K, and then a marketplace called Craftly with a C. This is part one of my conversation with Saahil Goel, founder of Shiprocket, and it's about the build. 15 lakhs of their own money, the hard realization that in India you sell outcomes, not software, the investor ultimatum to either take $4 million or nothing, and by the end, just how much capital it's taken to get from that first office to the edge of a public listing. Part 2 is where we get into how he actually thinks. For now, here's part 1. Sahil, welcome to First Principles. Now, most people date Shiprocket to 2017, but there's nowhere close to the beginning of your entrepreneurial journey or the company's journey itself. It was incorporated in 2011, right? So, do you want to tell me what was that journey?
Yeah, I mean, Gautam went to undergrad with me. Him and I had been spending years just kind of, doing our own jobs, but still obsessing over, that dream business idea that we both could, kick off together or explore together. And I think that started in 2010 maybe, right? Or 9 end, something like that. And then we kept kind of riffing, going back and forth. Till in 2011, we narrowed down on saying, hey, let's just, I used to build websites since I was a kid, I guess, since 8th grade. And he was, working with his dad, doing this automation parts distribution business, which he found boring, but he was good at it, right? So he was like the guy on the ground. He knew a lot of how India works, and because I lived abroad for a while, and then I was a tech guy. So I think we got together and said that, let's try to build something. And then by 2010, I had seen Amazon in the US. I had worked at Walmart for a little bit. And I finally saw Shopify, which became like a big eureka, saying, hey, India's got 5-6 crore small businesses. Gautam and I came from small business backgrounds ourselves. So some way or the other, it was like it just clicked in our heads that, hey, why don't we build the Shopify for India, right? So we launched as, actually initially, I don't talk about this much, but initially we were not even called KartRocket. We were called Smart Store right at the beginning, right? And then 9-10 months, we're like, this is a boring name. It could mean like a name of a box as well, like a storage box, because there was a German company with that name. So that, yeah, this is a bad idea. Let's rename it. And that time, I think like Rocket Internet was like a phenomena, right? They had a couple of outfits in India. It was like a thing, and my name was cool. So we just went with KartRocket and built India's first DIY SaaS-based shopping cart builder, right? That's how the company was born in 2012 early.
It was KartRocket. Yeah. Cart was the other word which was also very popular back then.
Yeah, with a K.
Right? Like,
Because Lenskart spelled it with a K. Flipkart spelled it with a K.
Exactly.
Or Lenskart, Flipkart together, I guess, similar time. And then, so we called it K as well because that was the spelling of cart in India.
And then at some point you pivoted.
Yeah, so I think the concept of Shiprocket, as it was there, like from day one. Like when I go back and look at my rec docs, stuff I had written.
No, don't jump ahead to Shiprocket just yet. We'll come to Shiprocket, the conversation about Shiprocket.
Yeah.
From KartRocket, you became
Craftly.
Yeah. What was that?
Yeah, so when we launched KartRocket, right, what happened the first year was we had nothing. Like we had no product, we had no team. It was Gautam and I in an office, and we tried to hire our first set of people. Failed miserably at it because, this was 2012 and no one really wanted to work for, we weren't from the IITs, even the people asked us, engineers who we interviewed, some of them asked us, what makes you think you can do this, right? And it was pretty depressing, to be honest, right? In the beginning that, oh my God, people are not willing to work for us at all. How do we get over this? So we started by saying, you know what, screw this, we'll go out there and build it. and I could build websites, Gautam could sell really well. So the initial year or 6 months just went in saying, hey, like an agency, that let's find this client and let's build a Magento website or an open cart website. Let's just like get it going. I thought that was really important because, that told us exactly what like customers want, what will they pay for, what do only I care about versus what they care about, and so on, right? So that got us into the KartRocket kind of business. We could hire finally somebody because there was something to show for in like a few months. And then we got our first set of engineers. Like one of them, like the first engineer is still with us, right? He heads AI for us now over the 12, 13 years that it's been around. So, and I think it was a very exciting time, but it was also very early. Like this is before Amazon had launched in India, right? It was still jungly.com, like a price aggregator website at that point. And people were like, we were having to convince people that, like it'll be your store, it'll work 24/7. It was that time to tell people, hey, you should go online, right? Let's hold a workshop to inform people to go online. As a startup with no funding, like we couldn't do that, right?
And so how were you funding it?
We were just bootstrapped. So Gautam and I put together, like we told ourselves that, look, we'll get 15 lakhs on the table. And if we can't make it in that, then that's it. Like we don't have more money and we'll cut our losses, because we don't want to keep on droning about like opportunity cost, blah, blah, blah. And obviously we ran out of the money in 1 year. Even though we were generating cash flow from day one, we opened the company with a customer check and our money, but it started growing and we ran out like in the first year, but it became cash flow positive in the first year because it's the kind of nature of the business and the way we designed it till we were able to attract like some seed money. And then obviously we got on the VC kind of treadmill, right? But I think along the way, we started realizing that, our vision was to help every SME go online, easily digitize, scale their business, and be able to then complete the journey. That was always the kind of passion, right? And we saw how broken it was, and we saw how like underserved in technology an Indian SME was, that it just became like an obsession to say like, this needs to get solved. Like someone should do it, and why don't we do it, right? And let's pick commerce because it's like the next big thing. People are going to order online. Every SME will want to have a way to sell online ultimately, and marketplaces like,
why did it not work then?
See, I think what happened is when we got into KartRocket, a couple of things failed, right? One, we tried to copy like the US model, the whole thing. One is to inspire from the gap, to say, oh, this is a gap. They solved it this way. How should we solve it? Of course, we weren't that smart. So we just like said, okay, let's just put the whole thing together and let's become them for India. And within a 6-month period, we realized that the pricing was wrong. We realized we couldn't charge monthly, right? Which is a big subscription-based billing concept in the US. India, you did not have direct debit, right? And subscription billing works on the fact that people want you to forget, right? You kind of don't want to have to look at it every month, or you'll think about it, right? So in our case, we would issue invoices and then the merchant would call us to their office. Hey, come over. You asked me for 4,000 rupees this month. What have you done? So we did nothing. Like we gave you the website, right? So that's not a good model in India. So I said, okay, let's start charging for the year. Again, it's an okay model because you at least get paid, but you have massive churn, right? Because why do you have churn? Because ultimately, customers were not making money, right? Why were they not making money? Because they were not able to generate demand, right? And if you can't generate demand, it's just it's a website, right? Where people walk in and that's it. Like it's a website.
There's another guest in First Principles who went through the exact same journey and learnings, which is Vidit Atre of Misho.
Yeah.
Right? Like, pretty much the same thing of trying to solve it for small businesses, but figuring out that small businesses wouldn't pay because they're not earning enough to pay essentially. So then you pivoted to something called Craftly. What's that? What was that?
I think the key realization after doing KartRocket was 2-3 main things, right? One is that demand generation, shipping, payments. These are the 3 main pillars without which like we won't get paid, right? Second, how do you build a platform which is charging like a marketplace, which is for outcomes, right?
Yeah.
Now it's a popular word. AI is all about outcome. We like fell onto the ground and realized it that, we can't sell software, right? We got to sell the service and back it with the software. This was 10 years ago, right? Or 8-9 years ago. Because we kind of did it and we realized. So how do you build a business model then, which is not a marketplace, which is the easy way and everybody was doing it, which is a SaaS-like model, but it is built around transactions, right? That became the huge challenge. So we took KartRocket. First, it became KartRocket Studio, which said, okay, well, let's take it to mobile. I remember we had gone to BNext to Singapore. BNext was one of our early investors. Yeah. And Singapore, they had this 2014, I remember Gautam and I were like walking in the balcony saying, everyone's talking about mobile, right? We are doing nothing in mobile. Myntra is going mobile only. They're shutting down the website. It is like that time. And we're thinking, hey, boss, like, what should we do? Should we build mobile-friendly websites for our consumers, for our merchants' consumers? And then ultimately, he said, no, why don't we build the mobile interface for the merchant, right? Forget the consumer for a second, because the merchant itself is not able to do anything themselves. They are not willing to pay for the whole work, and they want transactions. So how do we get scale? And we were playing in a couple of thousand merchants. So dream became, how do we get to tens of thousands of merchants, right? And that's when KartRocket Studio got, I guess, experimented to say, okay, let's build a mobile-first way, like inspiration from OLX, inspiration from Facebook pages. Like, those merchants are setting up their stores, right? Very simply, putting a listing and just putting it out there, right? Why can't we do it to their web store? So that became the kind of, thought process. And then ultimately what became KartRocket Studio was a simple go online in 30 seconds, take a picture. We will auto catalog, like we'll do some image matching, auto catalog, get your website up and running in less than 5 minutes, right? That became a big one because we pre-integrated the payment gateway, we pre-integrated shipping tools, and kind of like it was on a mobile app. So now we had creators and all of this like eclectic, exhibit people who sell in kiosks, all of that category coming online, which was not coming before, right? So that was interesting to say, oh, I'm able to digitize catalog, right? That I couldn't do before. That ultimately led to Craftly, right? Which
when
became
was this?
2015, 16, something like that.
Got it.
And why Craftly? Because when we went to the don't pay for SaaS, it's a mobile first solution. You pay us 10% when you sell. That was the model, right? And then as we got into that model, the way we could make money is only when orders came, right? And the only way to bring orders is to generate them. So we started building a ads network on top of Facebook, right? So we built we called it Craftly Ads Network, and it was essentially, we would generate the traffic, right? And then we would create audiences of jewelry buyers, sunglasses buyers, metro buyer, non-metro, blah, blah, blah. And then we would retarget those audiences and kind of sell them to merchants who we did not run the ads for. So it was like trying to do this game very early on in 16, 17. I think ultimately what happened was for us to scale that further, it meant us just generating more and more orders. That was never the goal, right? The goal was to start this so that merchants are easily able to do it themselves. We were not a B2C company.
Enablement.
Yeah, we were never a consumer company, right? Gautam and I and Akshay, Vishesh, none of us were like consumer guys. Akshay came from Amazon, but that was not the DNA of the company. Let me put it this way, right? It's not about the founders only. So we just we got lost somewhere. Oh, why are we doing this anymore? Because the means to an end, say it became the end, and it was not the end, right? And that got us into big puzzle because now we were doing GMV metrics and, there was Snapdeal and everyone, and we are B2C now. Every investor is going to give us money. And then suddenly in 2016 end, B2C became like a bad word in India where I was like, oh, you're doing B2C. Bankers stopped picking up a phone, right? People won't give you mandates, right? Because B2C just started toppling. E-commerce started going through hell at that time. So luckily we never had become that. We had become that in the platform. We had never become that company, right? Because in our heads, we were still doing seller first cataloging, seller first ads, seller first payments and checkout, seller first shipping, and put it all together into a marketplace format so the consumer can buy easily from the seller, right? So we were thinking more Etsy, more eBay, less Amazon or Flipkart. Are you getting what I'm saying? So
that's an incredible pivot, like starting from Shopify to Etsy.
Yeah. It's actually not that different. I'll tell you why. And that's why we failed, right? Because we did not think of the consumer in this process. We only thought that, okay, merchants are struggling with demand, they're struggling with payments, they're struggling with shipping. Let's build all three. Built all three. But it took a shape of a consumer property, which we never thought about. We thought about it, we didn't think about it deeply. That, okay, what does it stand for to the consumer? So it doesn't matter, it's the merchant's goods, right? And I think somewhere along that way, like by the end of 16, what had happened was we had gotten now tens of thousands of sellers, right? It was a transaction-based system. We had cracked CAC or seller CAC at scale. How do we bring sellers?
Customer acquisition cost.
For the merchant, right? How do they onboard? How do they retain? Blah, blah, blah. What do they pay for? What ticks them? How much margin do they have? Right? Will they give us 40% commission? Will they give us 10% commission? Like what's the margin in this category, right? And most importantly, why are orders not making money? Is it marketing? Partially, right? But the large part was around logistics, saying that RTOs are just too high. right? When you do a
What's that, a return order?
yeah, so basically in India, and most people might know this, but just for listeners who don't, e-commerce is a little bit of a double-edged sword, right? So, Flipkart somewhere invented cash on delivery, which was a great boon. And over time, I think is also a bane, because cash on delivery ushered in trust, okay, into the Indian consumer. So pre-cash on delivery, you had eBay and it was a completely open marketplace. India is a very low trust and improving now, but I'm just saying it was and will continue to be low trust because of the cycle we are going through. And in a low trust economy, the cash on delivery phenomena really made commerce possible because, we are used to home delivery, right? You call on the phone, guy comes, you pay money, get the item. So we did not change the behavior. We emulated that back into e-commerce, right? And once that happened, obviously that became the norm. Everyone adopted that. But the issue with cash on delivery is that there is no commitment from the consumer at the point of placing the order, right? So you're just saying, hey, I want this. Okay. Somebody shows up at your doorstep that costs money. And then you can say, I don't want it, right? And it goes back. There's no option. So this issue of saying, well, what's the skin of the consumer? And because there is no, I guess, closed pipe on what's happening on both ends, the address can be incorrect, right? India has a maze of its own addresses, right? Behind temple can be a correct address and not, right? Depending on the situation. In the same place, I mind you, right? So there's all of these challenges that started, right, showing up in Craftly, where we said, okay, when I run ads on Google, my RTOs are 10%, 15%. When I run ads on Facebook, they're 40%. Why is that, right? Same merchants. Why? Because the demand, one is intentful and the other is like push, right? To say, hey, you might want this, more impulse. But the game wasn't doing the impulse, right? So how do you build then an engine that ranks consumers, that ranks addresses, ranks courier partners, right? At the step of checkout, post checkout, right before delivery. So you want to save money in the process, right? Because now we were in the driving seat. Means earlier we were enabling merchants, right? Which meant that, hey, you give me money, whether you win or not, right? I still make money because I'm the picks and shovels guy. Now it's saying, well, I am the picks and shovels guy, but I'm like funding the expedition in a way that, look, if you strike gold, only then I get paid. But I'm still going to give you picks and shovels.
I can't but help observe that you're going through this intense period of hands-on learning about how e-commerce works
100%.
in India.
It was great.
By actually, there's obviously good and bad there, right? Because you're learning, but at the same time, this can't have been easy.
Retrospectively, it feels great. But in that moment, we were shitting bricks. So I'll just be honest with you that we have no idea what we are doing.
And with Craftly, there came a point in time.
Yeah, so Craftly, we ran out of money, right, for the second time in the company. And of course, we always had plan B, Rohin, because...
How big were you at that point in terms of people?
Maybe like 150, I want to say 170, like not
So I heard
small.
that there was a very famous, incident where when you're trying to raise additional funding to carry the company forward, you were given this option of you wanted $2 million and you wanted to shrink the company
to about $500,000, to be honest, right?
Oh, okay, fine. $500,000, right? And you want to shrink the company back to about 25 people or so.
Yeah.
But your investors are like, no, you either take 4 million
or take nothing.
Or you take nothing.
Yeah.
Where did that materialize from and what was the context behind this?
See, basically what happened was as we pivoted from KartRocket to Craftly, right? Suddenly we were generating orders for a company who was B2B, had never spent money on B2C marketing, didn't realize we realized it, but I'm saying also didn't realize it in our gut, how fast you can spend through that. Because in B2B, you can't really spend money like that, right? So, but it was scaling, right? GMV was the metric. Everybody was talking about GMV and MV and it kept scaling. On the other side, our seller metrics kept scaling. So that was heartening. And this we thought was just to explain to investors why we are valuable, right? The mistake we made is that we realized this later that, look, consumer companies have to be consumer companies and they have to be built like that. And B2B companies, they have to be built in a new way, right? We don't know what that is because SaaS is not working. Transactions are sort of not working, right? So we're not sure, but we know the problems there. 30,000 people are selling on Craftly every month, right? Why are they selling here? So there's a problem. A business model is not working, right? So we were quite clear and we realized that many customers started writing to us saying, hey, why don't you just carve out your shipping engine? Because what happened, Rohin, was we had spent a lot, we realized in the end that, hey, it's actually just this. Generating demand, all this we can figure out. But if this doesn't happen, if goods only don't reach, right, then the whole thing is lost. So how do we make sure that the shipping pipes are working? And the 2.5 years we ran Craftly, we really kind of did a lot of good work in pickups failing, right? Delays happening, which courier to use when, which lanes. At that time, like if there were 20,000 pin codes in India, it was like a Venn, like if no one did the whole thing. It was like a mixed bag, right? So we went through that, and of course we had our investors supporting us, saying that, hey, we like, this is the next way to go. This brings demand. Then you build the seller tools and you become like this. And honestly, that was not a bad idea. It was just subscale and it was wrong time and too early, right? Not the idea was bad. It's just that you couldn't execute like this. That could be the end state maybe at that point, right? So the point came when we couldn't, like, as founders and as operators, like we said, look, this is not like, this is going in a direction that we just don't think, it is not making sense to us. So we can't go on with it. It's weird, right? Just because we think it can raise money or some version can raise money, like it's what after that, right? We are not convinced of this model anymore. Like, okay, well, what do you want to do, right? We say, well, we have got 3 months of runway, so we like to pursue shipping. And this is a third inning now. And the key investors have been there for like 7 years, 8 years, 6 years, right? So it takes a lot, honestly, for them as well to say, okay, this guy's come back, he's burned through like $6-7 million and sitting on nothing, right? Again. And there, I think,
these are not just small adjacent pivots, right? You go from being a SaaS subscription-based play to a transaction-based pseudo B2C sort of play.
Yeah.
And now you're saying that we'll do shipping.
Now we're saying we'll do both, which is saying that it is SaaS, but we get paid for transactions. So no one's ever heard it, right? My investors are like, they like us, they believe in us, but they're not sure of the model. Because on the face of it seems like, well, why do you need it? Like, why do you need this layer? Why can't the guy just go to the carrier? Now, what people don't understand or didn't understand at the time was that, hey, it's not about access only. There are 10 points here. There's workflow, there's technology, there's ability to sell, there's risk, there's all of those things for the merchant where they just can't go there. Like, it's not there. This market doesn't exist yet, right? So, and it was a tiny market. Yes. What people didn't understand. It was a very small market. We said, yeah, but what was the iPhone market before iPhone was launched? Like, it's that kind of thing, right? When we put it out there, early adopters will use it, then more people will use it and more people might get born, right? So that was the thought process, because we realized that shipping is broken. And if there's going to be even $1 of business outside the big marketplaces, this kind of orchestration technology is needed. There is no way around it. And essentially, we built it like we carved out the...
Sorry, but then why didn't you want more money?
At that point? Because see, it's a B2B business, Rohin, where like we knew we could break even in 6 months, right? With the new model, and that would not require...
What was the new model?
So
this is where in some sense Shiprocket came to be. So what was that model?
Yeah, essentially, I think what happened was we had built the shipping layer in KartRocket as well, very weak one, because you needed it, right? But so we had it's not like first time we were doing this. Then we built a very robust but embedded shipping layer inside Craftly. Everything, right? So that is when because it became our pain versus being just a software provider.
To be clear, the pain is RTO, once an order is done.
Yeah.
So is it just about RTO? Is it about shipping and return? Both?
It's the whole thing, man. It's like pick up, then which provider to use where, which pin codes are performing how. Like you have to get it there on time, because there's a direct correlation between SLA, like how long you take to deliver, and RTO.
Got it.
Right? So RTOs can range from, even now, like on COD orders, 25%, 30% is very normal, right? It's not good, but I'm saying that's what it is. And prepaid orders might be like 1%. That's the stark difference, right? And that time, cash on delivery might have been 90%. Post demon obviously dropped quite a bit, and now it's like 50%, something like that, right? So it's still there, very much, right, as part of the e-commerce kind of game. So I think we realized that we didn't really need to raise money, because we could build a Twilio of shipping. And we took some inspiration from the payment gateways of the time, saying, okay, these guys sit between the bank and the consumer and the merchant. Like, we are kind of similar. In our case, the bank is actually these carriers of all shapes and sizes.
I like how this evolution also moving from building the Shopify to building the Etsy to building the Twilio or something.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, you're right.
Some of these are, I'm sure they're also retrofitted. At that point, maybe I'm not sure you didn't think of
No,
Twilio.
none of these are, I mean, apart from Shopify, these are all ways to explain what we were doing. We weren't.
Fair.
I mean, the payment gateway analogy, by the way, we were actively thinking, because we were trying to model on that, right? To say, how do we build the SDK? How do we build the API for every developers?
So you're very, to use the word, you're very promiscuous. You're at the end of the day, you're just a bunch of entrepreneurs trying to constantly and recursively look for where is their pain point, where is their unsolved pain
Yes.
point, and you're completely okay moving from payments to shipping to transactions to SaaS, trying different business models, etc. and stuff like that. And you finally land at, look, it is this shipping thing and returns thing, which is what we're going to try. Again, to come back to that question, why? I mean, from the point of view of investors, why were investors insisting that you take 4 million?
Yeah, so sorry, I got distracted. But to answer that question, see, I think from their vantage, right, we had done 2 innings and not really delivered the result we had hoped for, right? And at that point, I think from their perspective, it is risk protection to say, look, you can fail again. And at that point, everything we put and this will go to zero. Might as well take a buffer, right? And if you win, right, one, you have higher chances because you're sitting on more capital. And two, our returns get adjusted because then we have a higher equity, right? So I think, and I get it now, like from their perspective, because they have to make their returns too, right? So if they're going to take a risk, they're going to take it properly, correct? So I think that was the trade-off at that point, that we give away equity, but you get more cash, and you then have a.
Was it true that, I mean, some of the investors also recommended that you recapitalize, and you resisted, and you insisted that everyone who was on your cap table be carried forward from that point?
So no investors said that, but some of my entrepreneur friends told me that. Tell me something. Why don't you just do it like again, right?
What, wipe the slate clean and
yeah, just start again. Like, why even do it in this
start
company?
a new company?
Because
and
like,
raise
are you taking
money
anything
to
from
that.
here? I suggest this, right?
Huh.
But honestly, that's not fair, right? Because I mean, look, if I had delivered a result there, made 10x money or whatever, I think it's different, right? But honestly, one, it never crossed our mind. Two, our investors were working like partners, man. It was never like, us and them. It was not like that. And they were all like leaders of their funds in some or the other way. So the thinking was also very business-like. So some way or the other, the thought just didn't seem like we didn't want to do it. And all of our assets, all of our learnings were sitting there. We loved going to office, Gautam and all founders, all of us, we loved kind of what we did. It's just that we kept going through these rough business patches and wanted to get over that.
Got it. So that's how ShipRocket came to be. What's ShipRocket in a simple line today? What is the business?
Yeah.
And how do you make money?
See, basically,
Because you've done a lot of these.
I mean, if you leave the pivots aside, I actually don't think that in my head it's all one thing, right? Because the way I look at the transaction is very different from how most people look at the transaction, right? I look at any transaction as between a buyer and a seller, between two people, right? It's a capturing of intent and then commitment of intent to buy. That's one part of the transaction. People call it pre-order. We call it pre-order as well, right? And then there is the fulfillment of the transaction, which is the post-order, which basically means that everything from inventory all the way to returns or whatever. And then you've got the invisible missing glue, which is trust. The only 3 pillars of any e-commerce transaction anywhere in the world, right? Right? It's kind of the pre-order, the post-order, and the trust that's going to make it happen, right? When we did KartRocket, I think this framework is very clear to us because we had to build the damn thing, right? Everywhere from the first Facebook ad that we ran for the merchant, checkout failing, RTO. So we had a good width, right, in our minds, which didn't matter. We could zoom in, zoom out, try something else. And that's why when you say you kind of moved across, sure, but for us, it was not moving across. We're like, okay, we're selling this part of the overall thing we had made. So for us, it never felt like alien. Are you getting my point? Because we had done all the parts. It's not like we were a logistics company and then we became tech. We were a tech end-to-end e-commerce enablement platform. And now we had figured out a way to sell it, right? To sell it, basically ShipRocket at that point became the single most intuitive way and easy way for anybody who was selling outside of the marketplaces on Instagram, on Shopify, WooCommerce, Magento, essentially selling anywhere outside of the large demand aggregators, right? They needed a toolkit to be able to, power their orders, communicate to their buyers. What if something gets lost? Which courier to use when? Like, how do I even get pickups here? Are there even pickups? There's so many questions. So either you do a sales pitch, you send a person to explain to them what's happening, right?
So this is
versus
wrong
you
to
build
call it the logistics layer. Why are you not using that word?
No, it's what do you mean?
Why? So why is this not logistics? From a layperson's point of view, why is this not the logistics
as a
layer?
consumer, see, there's 2 ways to approach the problem you're solving, right? We are not solving a logistics problem at all. I know it sounds weird, right? Because we are not a logistics orchestrator at the heart, right? We are a commerce orchestrator, which means I'm going to take the merchant, look at their catalog, figure out the demand channels, my tech, right? Figure out the demand channels, figure out their consumer, right? And then figure out what's the best guy to take this order so that their e-commerce business is able to deliver, right? That's the thinking. So for us, we had to solve logistics so that their orders could work. We didn't solve logistics because that was the dream. The
Got
dream
it.
continues to be, how do we get 60 million merchants digitized with their own OS, right? That's the mission Shiprocket is on, because I fundamentally believe, right, and our company believes that as India becomes digitized, we just think that it is not possible for 90% of the market, for example, or 80% of the market to just run on monolithic, like, walled garden market. I just don't think that's the way forward, right? India has many markets together. It has many pools of demand. And there's a lot of, like, a third of our GDP is SMEs, right? I just don't think that they'll club into one chain. And, like, I just don't think that's going to happen, right? And when that doesn't happen, the only way is to give them the technology.
So once again, what's that answer? What is Shiprocket?
So Shiprocket is helping today over 200,000 merchants.
No, I'm going to hold you to that. You have to give me a simple line of what does it do?
Shiprocket helps you go online, scale your business, and successfully be able to reach all your customers all over India, no matter where you sell.
But Saahil, I mean, think about it from my point of view. That answer is so, strategic and high level that could describe virtually every part of a standard e-commerce transaction. You could be describing Amazon for all you know, right? But what is it actually? I'm trying to get a sense of how would you explain it to someone who doesn't understand, like, which is actually accurate enough?
So it's kind of repeating what I said earlier, right? Essentially, when you take your business online on any of the new age platforms, right? You need tools to help you manage your business, manage your customers, and manage your shipping, right? It's like a backend. So essentially, this is that tool, right? Where you say, okay, I'm going to plug this in.
How are you distinct from a Shopify?
So Shopify helps you manage your storefront and manage your listings, right?
Got it.
We help you manage your business, which means we help you reconcile your COD. We'll help you print the kind of file that goes to your CA. Download the file that goes to your CA for the reco. Like, it's like the backend. We are the terminal system.
Got it.
Right?
Who do you compete against?
See, we are a platform where...
I can understand one set of argument will be that the Amazons of the world, the Flipkarts of the world, which you call closed garden, they will essentially offer some version of this to their own merchants.
Correct, right? So there's this, again, and this competition in the sense of that a merchant wants to sell everywhere. We are not a marketplace. We are also not a monolithical enabler. So we're not a courier company. We're not a payment gateway. We're not an NBFC. We are not a shopping. So we're none of those things, right? We essentially become the Switzerland of e-commerce, where you're saying, look, I am no one, right? So I don't align with anybody. I only align with you as my customer. I only care about you. And that's the kind of main first principle in the company, that, hey, this is the guy who's paying us. His problems are our problems. Let's solve. And it's very simple, but it's easy to get
and how
distracted.
What's your business model reduced to simplicity? How do you make money?
It's pretty simple, right? So essentially, you are paying for software and paying for intelligence, right? That's what you're paying for. But in India, people are much happier paying for a do-it-for-me service, correct? So how do you kind of bridge this gap? You sell it as a service, right? Where in our case, we are able to buy logistics in bulk, which is 70-80% of the business today, whether it is cross-border, whether it is hyperlocal, whether it is courier, PTL, like the whole thing, right? And over time,
PTL?
It's part truckload, cargo, right? Basically. Yeah. And we've been able to get our partners, over hundreds of them, right? Including all the names that you know of, to become kind of the suppliers on the network. And we have over 250 partners spanning across payments and ERPs and couriers and so on, right? And then that allows us to be able to buy some of these services in bulk or in scale, basically. It also allows us to be able to have a control. Just like how a marketplace, when, for the part of their business they outsource, they will have a team and a intelligence layer, etc., to do this for them. Essentially, we aggregate 200,000 sellers' demand, right? Totaling like $3+ billion, right? And then we pipe it out into these suppliers to say, okay, my system says this order is going from Surat to Guwahati. We should use a surface connection because my EDD estimate says that this guy, whatever, right? So my system works. The sellers are able to see transparently each and every decision. It's not black box. They're able to pick also if they want. They see the different pricing, which is cost in, cost out, right? And that's how the model works. We end up making our money purely on transactions. So as a seller, you don't pay for the tech. You can come and connect all your channels, Amazon, Shopify, whatever. You can do analytics. Now we have AI. All that is just given away. Because after we did our last stint, it's not worth selling the tech. Give it away. It'll bring the CAC down. right? And then customers come, they try. The moment they want to consume a payment, a cash on delivery, a shipping label, right? They got to pay, right? It's prepaid in the wallet. So it's like we get paid quite immediately, right? And then we have our suppliers to pay after 30 days, right? Essentially, that's how the model works for the most part. So that allowed us to make it self-serve. It was a wallet, became an e-commerce transaction. Ki Rohin can download the app. He's not put money, run a marketing trip. It's not a send a sales guy. Run a marketing trip, let him start using his cross 20 orders, call him, right? He's cross 1,000 orders, meet him. So it's like that, right? It's like a funnel, like an e-commerce funnel. So essentially, that's the business model, to go after the long tail, digitally acquire them on the cheap, because you have the sort of the technology to be able to acquire them, onboard them, take credit risk on them, pipe all this demand by giving them the tools, right? To bring it into like a central system. Once you have all of the orders from these 200,000 merchants in a central system, essentially then you figure out the orchestration on saying, what is going where and what's the consumer behavior like, because you're sitting on now, I guess, like millions of consumer records, right? So you have a sense of, what has to happen. So the goal of the company defines what we do, right? Had we been a logistics, let's say, orchestrator, it would be a different game. Then I don't have to work with SME. I can work with anybody, right? Then I'm doing logistics solving. Here I'm solving SME commerce, where I'm saying, no, I am going to create the future sort of businesses who can stand on their own and give them the tools. So, like a marketplace transaction or a own store transaction can like be similar from the consumer perspective. So that bridge of saying, how do I give you an Amazon-like experience so you can give it to your consumers, is what we'll continuously try to bridge, right?
Well, in some senses, would I be fair in saying that it is almost like a virtual platform?
Yeah.
Because it aggregates across multiple providers. Instead of creating a monolithic platform,
Correct.
you're sort of creating a virtual alternative to all those who are not, or who may be also on those platforms, so that they can span across. Instead of a vertical one, this is like a horizontal play.
Yeah, and also I think people underestimate the need for the workflow. See, people say SME software doesn't work. Okay, it doesn't work to make a business model, right? But they need the software, right? They don't need this. They need it. Trust me,
And
they
in fact,
need it.
it's much more complex.
It's much more. They need it much more.
Vertical monolithic software is easy to make because you can
Yes,
standardize it
right?
for your one
Because
set of
now
customers.
you also buying flows. When you buy Shiprocket, certain things are pre-baked. Like when you buy SAP, right? Why do you buy it? Companies buy it because they know that our process is haywire or maybe not too standard. When we put a sales, or maybe an SAP or whatever, it'll bring with it this implementation of what has to be done, right?
Which is in some senses a best-in-class implementation.
Exactly. So Shiprocket, so it's a very opinionated product. If you use it, sometimes, like in the beginning at least, enterprise customers did not like it. And it was not made for them. It was made with a consumer-like sharpness, saying, no, I am going to tell you how to do it. And that's why it's going to work, because you may not know yet. And I'm sitting on data and I know, right?
Got it. This is a good place for me to just disclose that you have filed for an IPO.
Mm-hmm.
So give us a sense, of course, like that means that I'm not going to ask you any questions that compel you to give forward-looking responses.
Sure.
But you can always tell us, where is Shiprocket today? What is its scale? How is it growing? Give us a sense of its current scale, from where you came from, that 500,000 to 4 million pivot in 2017 to here we are in 2026.
That's a great question. I think, we maybe at that time when we raised that bridge round, I don't know, must have been doing maybe like 1,000 orders a day or something. Like I can't remember, 30,000 orders a month. So not very many, right? But we had the Craftly seller base, so we knew that I'm sure we can, but that's where we were, right? And as of last year, like we did, I think, just about 1,600 crores in revenue as of FY 25, just around between 25 and 30,000 crores in sales for our merchants, right, through the platform, making us sort of one of the top 5 players in the country in terms of e-commerce orchestration, and in terms of parcels between 15. I'm just trying to think last year, maybe between like around 15 crores, give or take, right, as of last year, in the year, right? So essentially, like it's or whatever it translates to, right, on a monthly basis. And I think over the years, what started with just doing shipping, right, started expanding into saying, okay, there's a trust problem, like we spoke about earlier. How do I reduce cash on delivery? How do I improve the guy's conversion? Because what happens is, when the consumer, like you and I, when we see an item on Amazon, right? We add it to cart, and I'm saying Amazon, Flipkart, Blinkit, any of the marketplaces, right? Because the trust is supreme. Like, you trust the marketplace. So when you like an item, you want to purchase it. The reason it stays in your cart and doesn't convert is because the guy got busy or you change your mind, right? It's not because you don't trust that it may not reach me or it may not be as described, because the marketplace has spent the money and the infrastructure to build that trust, right? What happens to the guy who's doing it standalone, right?
Yeah,
How do they get the
independent,
trust?
yeah.
So I think we started working on this problem, right? And we ended up building a universal checkout, for example, to say, look, the point of trust is established at the point of checkout, right? So we should own the checkout, instill the trust, and then again hand it over to the merchant and control the transaction like this,
What
right?
does that mean?
So today, for example, if you shop on a D2C website or on Instagram, you actually have those questions, right? As a consumer saying, okay, is this even real, right? Is this going to reach me on time? When will it reach me? Can it come faster? And what happens if I don't like it? What happens if it gets lost? So you're constantly kind of, battling the big guy who doesn't have to deal with this, right? And as a small brand, no matter what you do, you will have to deal with this, right? So what we realized over time as Shiprocket became larger is that a lot of consumers recognize us for the fact that we deliver, right? Because they remember the name. Most consumers are getting about 3 deliveries per year from us, right? So, I mean, on average, right? So there's a certain amount of recall from the post-order experience, post-order communication, because we do take over along with the brand to build that trust in the post-order. How do we bring it back to pre-order was the big question, right? And then a couple of years ago, two and a half years ago, started kind of experimenting with a single checkout where we said, look, if there was a common My Account, common checkout that could check for buyer fraud, that could autofill their address, that could, give them offers, right, from the banks, give them offers from BNPL, like everything in one place, like really good checkout, and make it single sign-on. So it's like a single, like Rohin logs in once, he's logged into every website. So it becomes like the marketplace checkout, so people get the trust, essentially.
Sounds to me that again you're
right?
going in that Shopify direction.
Yeah. So we built checkout. We have 10,000 plus websites that run it today. It's doing very well, right? It's scaling like quite rapidly, and merchants are getting between 10 to 20% conversion. The most heartening part of this is that it works, right? It brings in that uplift in the conversion, which tells us that, we can do 5 more things here to continuously build that trust. Because long term, when you think about it, right, when you're buying on Instagram or anywhere on the open internet, you need trust and you need fulfillment. Honestly, those are only 2 things that will make the transaction flow. As long as we own those 2 nodes of the open commerce, we have always a right to continuously play and continuously kind of scale, right? Okay. So that's where we started heading into saying, okay, Shiprocket of then and now, shipping, yes, but then we kind of got into pre-order, right? And of course, within shipping itself, because we are a 2-sided platform of sorts where I have to aggregate supply of shipping and then I have to aggregate demand. Now, supply can be 3 partners together making the supply. That's fine, right? Because I can do, some guy does the pickup, some guy does the middle mile, some guy does the last mile. I can do that. Or I can give the whole thing to someone like a Blue Dart, for example, or a delivery, for example, right? So that really depends on the cost, on what the merchant is looking for, what the transaction nature is like. And it's so many decisions put together that, like, once it starts running for the merchant, right, the improvements that happen in their supply chain, that's when they start really realizing that it's not about the cost or the data or the tech alone. It's not one silver bullet thing. It's like all of the orchestration together gives you a better repeat rate, a lower RTO, a better SLA, right? Better, happier customers and so on, right? More money in your pocket and the right advice and the right guidance, all through a programmatic and now AI kind of a method to deliver this service, right? And I think that this supply, this 2-sided supply is very exciting because especially in the post order, like when we launched, we only had courier for the longest time, right? 5 years ago, we added our fulfillment center offering because we had to do next day. In fact, Bangalore was the first FCV had partnered TVS with, right? And over time, we now have multiple, right? Then we got into dark stores over time. We got into cross-border. So we're the only company who can do 7-8 days delivery to the US. Of course, now we've had all kinds of things happening, but steady state, right?
Tell me, you mentioned dark stores, right?
Yeah.
How do you do dark stores as no owned logistics company? Because the understanding around quick commerce is that the only way to really ensure on-time delivery is to kind of own the inventory in some senses and actually control the dark store network.
For grocery,
what do you
right?
guys do?
For grocery and all. So
Yeah.
we are not doing 10 minutes, 30 minutes, like 2 hour, 4 hour next day, right? Essentially, that's the supply chain. And lots of like electronics, FMCG, apparel, right? Athleisure, home. Some of these categories, I mean, it does work out because you don't actually need to, like, it's not that intense because, see, it's simply like saying, okay, my D2C brand is working. I get X thousand orders a month. Let me also introduce 4-city, next day delivery or same day delivery. My conversion rates will improve. My COD will drop. So it's like you should not think of it like the quick com consumer outfit. That's different. This is a brand trying to elevate the experience to the consumer because they realize that the consumer is now going to expect it.
I get
Right?
what you're trying to say is that as consumers, we want the shortest possible
100%.
delivery. And from the brand side, they also want to
Yes.
shorten it for you.
Yeah.
There is some part in the middle of this line where it's sustainable and people will meet. And for groceries, it may be like 10 minutes or 20 minutes. For other categories, it may be 2 hours or half a day or next
The
day,
way I describe
etc.
it is grocery apps, like again, you can mimic the offline world, right? If you look around you, there's kiranas, there's like department stores, but you can't buy like t-shirts in the department store, right? And then you go to the market, right? You go to the mall, there you can buy t-shirts, right? So the vision ultimately is that we believe, we have been big proponents of fast commerce. By the way, we were saying it 5 years ago, saying that 2-day delivery is the big thing because we wanted merchants to build their own infrastructure for
You guys
2
have
days.
been ahead of trends.
Yeah, because we look at what's coming in terms of
Because you're working closely with
we're working closely with the
businesses.
merchant and they tell us, right?
Got it.
So our biggest idea that come from the merchant. The whole thing, most 8 on 10 of our platform ideas came from the merchant. In a meeting or some key account manager said this customer is really facing this problem. That's that's also the DNA in a big way, right? Where product development is never absent from the merchant, right?
What's your process for ensuring that the most insightful and valuable inputs from customers actually flows back to the organization and ends up as features or evolution?
See, I think it is. I have not been able to solve that with process, to be honest, because
Is it a cultural problem?
yeah, I think it's a cultural opportunity, right? Because what happens is the moment you put a process, right, you said most insightful, process does not allow for that classification, okay? Because then it's up to the judgment of the person. So how do you know, right? I think what ends up like being true in the company, for example, we have an open culture of saying, look, if it's right for the customer, do it. Forget process. Just do it. Nobody will challenge you. Break the process, right? As long as you know in your heart that the customer is going to be better off, right?
Got it.
The merchant is going to be better off. In some of these endeavors over the years and the way we operate, etc., like we meet our merchants very often, right? We have these monthly events called Yatra. We do a Shivir every year because we are a remote company. Otherwise, we don't meet clients. But these are ways for us to do focus groups with 100 people, 50 people, 1,000 people. And we have a very deep, like daily engagement. See, because this is not a set and forget. Like in a payment gateway as well, once you got the payment, kind of back off, right? On Shopify, you've got your agency partner to do like your website work, but it's not operations, right? Operations is like intense because you've got tons of things happening. So a merchant not writing to us only when they have an issue. They are writing to us to make sure that, or to their relationship manager and now to AI to make sure that it's all working, right? So there's a deeper relationship there. And that allows us to constantly be able to bring all the information up, right? The second thing is, I think product, we still are very much a product first company, correct? Because we always were SaaS and that's never changed. So I think product decisions, I still heavily weigh in along with my CPO, CTO business as well, to make sure that it's not straying away from the overall
Got it.
architecture.
Let me switch tracks now to you. Tell me about your family history and how you got into entrepreneurship in the first place.
Yeah, so I got exposed to sort of a computer in my house very early on. Maybe
You
like
grew up in Delhi.
I grew up in
Went to
Delhi.
St. Columbus.
Yeah, I went to St. Columbus and, I guess, got computer access in school very, very early when I was like, I don't know, 4th grade or something. I remember playing with Logo, right, which is the...
What's your family background?
So my family was into business, right? My dad was into manufacturing, small scale manufacturing. Grew up seeing, things that worked, but also what didn't work, but grew up knowing that it's like this, right? It's always up and down in business. And that was one at least good thing that has helped me amongst many other, right? And then early on got into, saw what I could do with computers. I used to take things apart when I was younger. So I remember people used to not call me to their house, like my relatives and all that. Okay, if he's coming, just like, don't give him any tools, because I took apart like washing machines and stuff, right? just to know how it works. So I think I
There's
call
a Hindi
myself.
word for that.
What's that?
Khurafati.
बहुत ज़्यादा, बहुत खुराफाती या दिल्ली में इसको बोलते हैं चुल, right? This is some problem, right? So that I think I'm a I love reverse engine. Like, how does it work? And there's no reason, there is no end of that thing. Acha, why am I doing it? It's a curiosity, right? And I think stayed with me.
After your school, you
Throughout,
decided to go
man,
to the
like
US.
through school, I think I kept doing this. Then I became the school computer guy or whatever, right? I got on the school website team. I was bunking classes. And then I represented the school a couple of times, and I came to know that, hey, I'm actually good at this. Like, I should do this, right? And then throughout undergrad, I went to the US for a couple of years, and then came back to India, where again I met Gautam, finished up my undergrad, and we were an instant like click because he was everything I wasn't. But both of us had this passion for, like, we could jam, okay, we could do this, and then this could happen. Like, we could dream ideas together, and they were somewhat logical. They were not like jokes, right? And that, I think, was very early for Gautam and I in undergrad, and we never did anything about it, but we just kind of became friends, right? And over time, I obviously went back to the US after my couple of years of work at Max. I got another I went for my MBA. And then we just stayed in touch right after that, Gautam and I. But I kept building on the side, right? I kept building front-end websites. I was doing project work for a bunch of clients, like just as a freelancer, right? I was to code in Joomla. WordPress became like a very, very, like I knew WordPress very well, still do, right? And that's how I became a front-end developer without my job ever requiring it of me.
You're a business analyst.
I was a business analyst at Max. And then after my MBA, I became again like a similar job. I don't even remember what I was called. I was called a consultant, but I was a product manager, enterprise product manager, right? And so I was in tech, but I wasn't coding. I was telling the coders what to do, essentially, or checking their code as a user. And that was my job, to sit between the business and the tech to kind of make sure that it gets delivered, right? What is the expectation of the business? But it was boring as hell. Like, I would without kind of taking away from what I learned from all my organizations, I just found that, like, I remember this instance where I went to my manager on Tuesday. I was like, I'm done with the week. Like, can I just take the work for the next week? He said, well, that's not how it works, because the business guy is not available this week. So I said, like, I'm so early in my career. I'm like sitting. He said, just go out and like just take your friend out and have coffee or whatever. So it's very strange, like, to us, because we're used to hustling, and we have to build. Early days of my career, I was going to get married the following year, so there was all this like stuff in my head, and I think that was the time I said, I first tried writing into Silicon Valley, saying I want to do a startup. Enough is enough. I can't do this enterprise style work anymore. I'm getting really bored, right? And my curiosity quotient is not getting fed. And then I think I think the whole like H1B and it just became mentally too much for me to think about, and I said, I'm going to regret. Like, if I don't do it now and I get promoted or something at my job, I might start getting scared to take this call. So
the golden handcuff might start. Yeah.
And I never told my wife about all this, like, at that time, just because if I discussed with her, then it would become a plan, right? I told her at some point we might have to go back, because if I get a great idea, okay, sure. And then within a year of, I think, getting married, I think we just, like I said, we're going back, because Gautam and I have been working on this, and I really want to do it. So definitely leap of faith at that time, but did not feel like it at all. Somehow just felt right, that like I was never happier.
Was it more a function of being frustrated at your job
100%.
Or the opportunity that
No, it was very much the frustration. And this fear that if I don't do it now, like I just won't do it, I'll become like my friends, and I'll buy a house, and I'll even more reason not, like, so I thought I'll start my life here, and then it'll be hard for me. So might as well, if I have to do it, just take the risk now.
Why do you think some people think like this? A lot of people might be thinking, I'm early in my journey. I need to build a great career. I need to earn more. I need to buy a house.
Yeah.
You're thinking sort of the other way around. You're thinking, I don't want to get too comfortable. I don't want to get a great salary, get locked in, have a home loan, and then not be able to do it. I mean,
I think it was just, I was quite early, right? And like, if you looked at my career trajectory before that, I looked like a bad resume, because like there's no rhyme or reason to the jobs I shifted, to the continents I shifted, and it was completely random to somebody who was observing, right? It was the first time I felt that okay, I never have to leave this job because like when I was thinking about this future, for the first time I felt content in my head. So like I said, I don't think the opportunity cost was that much. I know I can make a story out to be, but in my head I thought, okay, worst case, I'm 15 lakhs poorer. I do this for 2 years and it's okay. I also graduated in 2009 from my MBA. Remember that. It's not like there were 5 jobs chasing me. Lehman had just shut down and it was the housing bubble in the US. So not like there were opportunities raining everywhere. But I got something. I worked with Bear. I got would have become full time. I know because my friend was with me and he is still there. so, but it, like I said, I don't think it was, it never felt like, कोई बहुत बड़ा मैं risk लेके जा. It didn't feel like that. It just felt like, okay, I'll try this because I had been doing this. I had been trying things for 2 years. So it became one of those new things, right?
Got it. One of the things you've also done, I'm sure multiple times over the course of your career, is fundraising.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's been lots of, that if you look at it as an iceberg, the successful fundraising is only what's visible on
100%.
top. The unsuccessful. What are some of your learnings from all the unsuccessful fundraising attempts over the years?
See, I think two sort of things here that I observed about ourselves and in general as well, right? See, we started very early when, like, for example, when Gautam and I started, we did not know, no shame in this, that VC, what was VC? We didn't know that this existed, right? So we were starting a business, right? Where we were partners. We were not co-founders like it was in a startup. We were partners in a business. We had our moms on the cap table, right? That's how it was. Like me and my mom and him and his mom. Like an old way of setting up a company, right? Until we got our first term sheet and said, your mom's got to go off the cap table. So I think we didn't know like we had to raise money, like it was even available until somebody told us. Vishesh came to us. He had come a little bit from the startup circuit. He had been consulting a lot of other companies. So he told us, you guys know that this is possible. Of course, we read the news and stuff. We didn't think it was like for us, right? And then we went to one of these events, right? I forget by whom, and so there's actually more people doing stuff like this, 'Cause I'm telling you, this is how it was. We didn't know who are the other are there other companies out there. It was very, very early, right? So I think that mindset helped and also didn't, right? The reason it helped is because we just didn't know how to craft stories. Like we didn't realize that pitching is a thing, right? We just went and told them that, hey, we're these guys, and we kept getting rejected, right? Because we couldn't speak the language they wanted to hear. Because nobody told us like what is that, right? And for the first one at least. So what is good is that we ended up getting the people who we got what we deserved, right? Where we wanted somebody to get us into this circuit to say, oh, this game can be made really big with money, right? And our vision of getting millions of sellers needs to be able to get the right thinking, thought capital. Cash, okay, we'll figure out, but we need like, how do we do this, right? And I think that became the big hunger for us. How do we get investors who get it, right? Otherwise, we will not tell a story to get somebody and then we'll get stuck, right? So I think having that sort of obsession with saying, yeah, all of these guys must go online at some point, having that obsession somewhere, just helped us, right? In that sense, because it was our baby and we didn't want to compromise it for anything. And we never had... we were never really in the beginning, many years, because we were running...
Just to remind you, my question was, what are the lessons from the unsuccessful fundraising? So first one you gave me was lack of narrative and speaking the same language as what VCs wanted to hear.
Yeah.
By the way, what was that? What was the language that you was... I understand the language that you were speaking, which is in some senses business and transactions and how money is made and where margin is there. What was the language they were expecting to hear?
What's the market size? Who will ever sell offline, sell outside the marketplaces? Why will consumers ever buy from a brand they don't know and trust, right? Why, even if this happens, why can't they just go and get a payment gateway and a shipping engine? Like, why are you guys even later on needed, right? So it's things like those. Now, yes, there wasn't like, how can there be a market for something that's not happened yet? And this is the only thing I couldn't explain to people. Like, look, this is going to happen. Maybe the timing is off from what we are saying. And Later on, I realized that they're also running a shop. They have timelines. They have LPs. We don't know all that, right? So it seems quite frustrating. Saying nobody understands this, right? In the beginning, we must have gone to like 100 pitches, man. In the first seed, like trying to raise seed money, 50, 100 pitches. So I think over the years we.
And then from subsequent rounds, once you got to know the language and started speaking it, I'm sure there were also other.
See, I think I've spoken to many founders. See, ultimately, you only need one guy to say yes, right? You don't need to get 10 people to say yes. You need one investor, right? And typically 50, 100 meetings is pretty normal is what I hear from every founder.
So, okay. I mean, since you mentioned AI, if you were to run AI on the 50 that you did to get to the one that you actually said yes, what would it say about why that one? Was it just a random, was it a coin toss or was there something specific?
No, 100% there's something specific, right? So I don't think it is coin toss. I think it is the point of view of the world that the investor has and your point of view, and it has to match. It's like a dating exercise, to be honest, right? And when we met the 50, honestly, every time the money came from the place we thought it should not, like it wouldn't, like this is not going to convert, right? Like the first seed round came from Pearl Uppal. Pearl Uppal used to be the CEO of Fashion and You, right? We went to pitch her KartRocket. I mean, as a customer, because she was running a D2C brand.
I get that because she's an operator. She understands that you understand.
So pretty much all my investors are operators. Arjun Sethi of Tribe Capital, Rajan Mehra of Nirvana Ventures, Pearl in the beginning, right? Bertelsmann, sure, Pankaj and Rohit may not have operated in business, but they are like, Pankaj is a MD of Bertelsmann India, so he's operating that business. So my early days ended up connecting only with people who had done it, right? It was hard for me to sell the banker story or the financial equity story, you know what I mean? Because I didn't realize that itself was a job. To tell the story is also a job, and now I get it, right? Because you have to like sort of over time, you have to be able to explain the business, and the story has to get more disciplined. You have to understand kind of what happens over time and explain it to other people so you can take them along, right? But early days, I just don't think it's a skill that should be expected, because otherwise you've got a flop-sided. Otherwise, you can have great storytellers with no product or no business, and then like, what's the point of that?
That was my follow-up question, because I suppose there is a spectrum. On one end, it is if you're very clever and you understand how the narrative is structured, then you're tempted to change your narrative to fit the audience. In which case, you're probably successful at selling the vision, but not successful at execution. On the other end of the spectrum is you're great at execution, but you don't want to kind of craft a narrative that's fake or run ahead of reality. I guess that spectrum, somewhere in the middle, you keep tweaking
100%. I think we like to stay on this end, and that's because it's our personality. I don't think anything is wrong or right. I mean, see, if you are able to raise money by creating, like, sort of expanding a crafted story that helps you reach your objective, fine, right? As long as investors made money, you made money, no problem, right? Your customers won. I think for us, our mantra or our like formula is to say, look, make money, always have the reins in your hand. After second pivot, we never really after that. Well, we were always cash flow positive in the shipping business, by the way. No matter where the net company is gone, because of M&A, because of our investments, it was always that in 3 to 6 months I can break. Like, if we always have a plan, right? Because we knew that after this, if we're going to do it our way, then we need to be able to carry it through all the way our way. Then we should not need anybody's help, right? That, I think, thought never left us, and till date, like, it's never left us saying, okay, I'm never going to be dependent, right, on anything. So I will make my calls. I will invest, right, in a big way, but I know what I'm doing and I know how to control my investments, right? So I think it is for us been the, alignment towards what we want to do. We have run this like a dhanda, right, making profits. We want to do it forever, right? It's not like a venture at all, to be honest, right, that you make and sell or whatever. It's something that we want to run like forever, because we believe that this is infrastructure being formed, and we have a shot at it. Most people don't have a shot at building anything permanent, right? We have a shot at building something which is going to be ever growing and permanent, right? So that's a great opportunity, right, for us and our tribe. So I think we got lucky in that sense, where we kept telling our story the way it is. We never really needed tons of money. It was all opportunistic. As a B2B company,
how much venture capital have you raised till date?
The dollar rates have all moved around, but I think like somewhere between 220, 30, 250, something like that, $1 million. I mean, depending on the exchange rate, right?
Right. If you've been a long-time listener to this podcast and are glad we're back, do tell the world by sharing this episode with everyone you think will find it valuable. This is me, Rohin Dharmakumar, signing off. We'll be back soon with another episode.